So, at first, thanks to the organizer inviting me, and thanks for our job to conclude or to try to conclude this wonderful seminar. So it's difficult to intervene after two brilliant presentations, as you have just heard now. But I'll try to focus on the examples and case studies that I've dealt with during my career path. At first, and it's a symbol, the international relations of the European metropolis of Lille, that is included in the Directorate of Attractiveness and International Cooperation, itself a part of the Economical Development and Employment Department. It's a mainstream as evolution of the role devoted to international relations department within the metropolis in Europe. It's a symbol rather than a coincidence that the challenge of city branding is based now on the internationalization of the territory of its territory composed of various stakeholders, with a major issue how to have the capacity to involve them into a shared approach and integrated strategy of promotion. At first, it depends on their capacity to mutualize a project, to accept the same banner. For instance, as Barcelona with Girona, promoted as the low-cost airport related to Barcelona, but 100 kilometers forward. It takes time to create a real serious experience of city branding that work really, as I Amsterdam, 10 years to build it. But it's necessary to meet the collective representation of territory, the so-called identity of territory, to build a real city branding. After a period of necessary change during the 80s and 90s, is now a new approach, as explained by Alberto Vanolo and a lot of speakers today. The second step after the massive public budget cuts as a bottom-up approach, based on the main advantages of the territory. I mean, its economic highlights, its human capital, its cultural and sportive facilities. And that is supported now by leadership. It's available for the major part of the metropolis in Europe, I think. And especially after the crisis of 2008. The policies of city branding alone aren't enough efficient. The risk is the disconnect with the active forces of the territory and the local society. The first strategy, as analyzed for Turin, is the organization of a great event, how to be able to change the image. So it's also hosting equipment. For instance, there is a new museum, the new museum of the Arabic world, opens this weekend in Tourcoing, in the metropolis of Lille. It's like a symbol. The policies developed by the metropolis to promote their territory needs to change really the image. For instance, like Lille, called the Hell of the North during the 60s after deindustrialization, rather than visited crossing city at that time. It's time for posterism, as shown by Michael. The candidacy for the Olympic Games, but the fact to be awarded European Capital of Culture in 2004 has obviously changed the image of the metropolis of Lille, and it was a lever for strengthening the different sort of stakeholders and also to involve the local society as ambassador of their place, the place to be. And it's really a big change for them. After 2004, the challenge was to strengthen this involvement within events of the population through Lille 3000, an association built after 2004 and in charge to develop every 2 or 3 years, it depends, a new theme with a large event similar to the European Capital of Culture in 2004. The events were called Bon Baiser, Fantastique, and you can see the name, Europe XXL, Renaissance. The next one will be El Dorado, with different themes, but also a very great ambition. At that time, it means it was necessary to enlarge the audience, and not only in the sense of attracting spectators from abroad, but also keep the attention of the tourists from nearby. And this is a very big and strong challenge. So for Lille now, the great events are still Lille 3000, but also have turned into the organization of sport events to promote a better use, like for Budapest, a better use of investment into large sportive facilities built after 2010 and seen as more popular events. It's Football Euro Cup, it was Basket Euro Games this year, it was Tennis Davis Cup, the Tour de France, and so on. But the economic impact is difficult to assess for this event. And the cost, even with a public-private partnership, were substantial. Sorry. And a short story about that time of the football championships. The Belgian fans of football have used this year the social network to be hosted by inhabitants of Lille with the slogan, "Adopt a Belgian fan of football this evening," based on the good reputation of hospitality in Lille and the north of France. And they became, in fact, the perfect ambassador of territory. And now we have still linked with them. So the second way of success, a new shape for the policies of internationalization, is due to the great decrease of public budget, but also the awareness of a better social and economical benefits, when the setup of the projects and events is possible thanks to the gathering of all actors, stakeholders, local society, and based maybe on the public-private partnership. The metropolis now enlarge its basis. Lille 3000, for instance, has now to organize now events within the 85 municipalities included in the metropolis. And in a few days, it will be 90 municipalities. The process developed to implement the strategy for the visibility of the metropolis of Lille is to focus also on the sectors of excellence and through the promotion of the clusters as Euro technologies for the new technologies, Euro Santé for health, and so on. This strategy is continued during the host of foreign delegation or through the international network and so on. So there is as somebody said, there is a smart partnership, and metropolis select now more than ever the cities to be in partnership. The third issue is the idea to find the real place of the metropolis into the urban hierarchy. And it's a step to be able to define a realistic ambition for the territory. Every metropolis isn't a global city, Christian explained to us, and the policies depends of the diagnosis made for defining the target level of international ambition of the metropolis. It's a sort of repositioning of the cities into international networks also. It's an ongoing process for Lille. The example of Brussels capital is very enlightening for us. In 2005, the politicians have decided to find a new balance between the business and leisure tourism. In favor of the weakest, it was the leisure tourism. The diagnosis was they have to define a realistic way to do it as an international city, part of the second rank in the urban hierarchy and not the first one. They didn't want to compete and to be compared to with London, Paris, New York, and so on. even they are the headquarters for European Commission and Europe, in fact. The stakeholders involved in the agency of tourism, called Visit Brussels, are focused the development of the leisure tourism on themes like comic strip or contemporary art or urban art, and they have developed a sort of short journey focused on that theme. They didn't spend a large amount of advertising placed in the fast train station and very expensive airports or big monuments, but a fewer amount of money was spent because they have chosen to place some advertising for this exhibition, for this event, in journals or specialized magazines related to the theme treated at that time. And the benefits were substantial, insofar as the target groups of tourists spent more money and more time than the classic tourist. In fact, the interest for the theme is the main lever of their journey. At last point, but not the least, is the lobbying and the support of these policies by politicians, of course, and the impact of the increase of wars, conflict, terrorist attack, which are supposed to break the wills to develop attractiveness all over the world. The politicians more than ever need to be convinced. The risk is the weak support for these international policies and decentralized cooperation, in fact. Maybe a good practice could be a mapping of the different economic, academic, cultural, sportive partnerships already existing on the territory. Present a realistic view of a territory, a vision of a territory shown in the world to prepare a strategy could be based after on the economic and social highlights of the territory. And objective, it's really to gather the stakeholders and to convince the politicians to continue to have a policy of solidarity, because there is also a concrete added value even for citizens. But one key word now for them as institutional government is the reciprocity in the North-South relationships. And maybe to give a feedback of the role of international networks, because we have talked about this topic, is for us definitely substantial. For instance, when after their territorial reform, Italian and French cities, Turin, Torino, Lille, Lyon, Milan, asked the last year the European Commission to allow the metropolis based on a local government elected to a universal suffrage to be eligible to candidate for Green Capital, E-Capital, Capital of Innovation awards, because it was forbidden for metropolis since that year, 2016. It was available only for cities, and Eurocities has made enough lobbying to be able to change it. And it was really, for us, a very important success, and it was a challenge for us. And Eurocities was now led since this week by Daniel Termont, the mayor of Gand, 100 years after the EULA network was built. And it's the new president of Eurocities as a socialist and is a member of Socialist Party of Belgium. And it's really like a symbol. And when the cities, the metropolis have signed, they were allowed to be a part of the negotiation with the European Commission during the Pact of Amsterdam, during the agenda, the European agenda. We have seen mayors like Daniel Terman from Gand, but also the mayor of Amsterdam, to speak about the necessity of course, urban agenda. But the next one could be the European citizenship agenda, because they mean that we need it. And the mayor of Amsterdam, it was like fresh air, because it's a long time ago that we didn't hear that terminology, but he has spoken about the egalitarian city of Amsterdam as a model of integration and inclusion. Thank you.